Let's start with some of the currency discussion that we just heard from El Arian. You know, we have seen some recent softness in the dollar. You would think that would be a pretty good thing for Middle Eastern economies because not only does it ease some pressure on currency pegs, but it also helps boost the price of oil.
Well, actually, we've seen how stronger dollar actually impacted negatively the economies, especially if you look at it in the UAE, whereby tourism have slowed down, because especially from the emerging market countries, whereby the stronger dollar actually reduced the number of tourists coming from those countries. In general, yes, weaker dollar will definitely impact price of oil, because price of oil should go upwards, trend upwards, and plus the tourism from a tourism side, because the economies, especially in the GCC, are focusing on the non-oil revenues, and tourism is becoming one of the pillars for those economies.
I definitely want to ask you about that, but before we start, I just want to dig into the oil price a little bit. If you look at the chart behind me, that's GBTV 1355, you can see that there is some sign of tightness in the oil market structure. In particular, we have October-November Brent spreads back in backwardation. So even if we haven't seen the price really surging recently, we do have a pretty fairly dramatic tightening in the forward structure. I think that's the highest in about 3 years at least. Now, you mentioned some of the Middle Eastern economies seeking to diversify revenues. We did see some budget figures out of Saudi Arabia last week showing that the second quarter budget gap narrowed to about 46.5 billion rials. But to this point, the point of the oil chart, most of that seemed to be related to a recovery in oil prices. Does this mean that Saudi is essentially still an oil story?
Well, the thing is that the government has been pushing for fiscal reforms, and fiscal reforms take a lot of time to be, to take into effect in the economy. So the thing is, they actually, if you look at the budget numbers, the non-oil revenues were a bit disappointing, where they were down 17%, which is actually for us is a bit expected, because the reforms are still taking into the first step towards those fully reforms. So I believe we have to give Saudi a bit of time till next year at least, to show those impact. Because, for example, the first types of reforms which is the taxes on expats, will be will start into effect for the second half. So I believe we need to give it a bit of time to see the whole picture in the Saudi economy diversify towards the non-oil as per the plan.